few years ago, when I was deep into my obsession with the dark web, I kept hearing rumors about these so-called red rooms. They were supposed to be live streams where people paid to watch others get tortured or worse. I didn't believe they were real at first, just some internet myth that got blown out of proportion. But then I got an invitation. It came out of nowhere, late at night while I was browsing. A chat box popped up on my screen, and it wasn't from anyone I knew. The username was just a random mix of numbers, but the message was chilling. Want to see something you'll never forget? I thought it was a joke at first, so I ignored it. But then another message came through. This isn't for everyone, but I think you're ready. Attached to the message was a link. I stared at it for a long time, debating whether or not I should click. Curiosity got the best of me, and I copied it into my browser. What opened up was a black screen with a timer counting down from 10 minutes. No text, no images, just the timer. I was about to close the window when a new message popped up in the chat box. Don't look away. I sat there feeling uneasy, but I kept watching the screen. When the timer hit 0, the screen changed. It was a live video feed of a dimly lit room, the kind you see in old basement horror movies. Concrete walls, a single overhead light. In the middle of the room was a man tied to a chair, blindfolded and gagged. I froze. This was no movie, no staged event. The man was struggling, trying to scream through the gag, and from somewhere off camera, I could hear faint breathing. For a few minutes, nothing happened. The man just sat there trembling, while the sound of footsteps grew louder. Then, someone entered the frame, a person dressed all in black wearing a mask. They held something in their hand, something long and sharp. I don't know why I didn't close the window. I should have. But it was like I was glued to the screen, unable to look away. The masked figure didn't say a word. They walked up to the man, slowly dragging the object across the floor. I couldn't see exactly what it was at first, but I knew it was a weapon. The chat box dinged again. This time the message said, "Now you can't leave." I freaked out. My hands flew to the keyboard, trying to close the window, but nothing worked. Every time I clicked the X, the window would pop back up, showing the live stream. The chat kept going, with messages flooding in from other viewers. I wasn't alone. There were others watching, commenting, enjoying what was happening on screen. I finally yanked the power cord from my computer. For days, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing those footsteps in my head, replaying the image of the man in the chair, wondering what had happened to him, although I think I know deep down. I've always been a bit of a tech geek. I like exploring corners of the internet most people would rather stay away from. One night, however, curiosity led me way deeper than I'd ever gone before. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just browsing different forums and seeing what kind of weird stuff people posted in these hidden corners. That's when I stumbled on this one forum. Its name was just a random string of numbers and letters, but the title of the first thread caught my eye. "They're watching you." I clicked it, expecting a cheesy conspiracy theory or some urban legend. What I found was a series of posts detailing personal information about me. My name, my job, the city I lived in. All of it was there, laid out in plain text. At first, I thought it was a weird coincidence. Maybe someone with the same name, maybe the info was public somewhere. But as I scrolled, it got worse. There were details only I knew, like the name of my dog or the exact layout of my apartment. Then, at the bottom of the page, there was a new post that hadn't been there a second before. "Look up." I froze. The hair on the back of my neck stood up as I slowly lifted my eyes away from the screen. Nothing. No one was in my room. I sat there trying to shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. I decided I was done with the dark web for the night. But as I was about to close my laptop, a notification popped up on my screen. An email. It was from an address I didn't recognize, but the subject line made my heart stop. "Are you going to ignore me?" I clicked it without thinking. Inside was a single line of text. "Look at the window." I turned my head slowly to face the window next to my desk. Through the glass, I saw nothing but the night outside, illuminated by the faint streetlights. But then, in the distance, a figure moved. A person standing just out of the light, staring at me. It was too dark to make out any details, but he was there. I knew he was looking directly at me. I slammed my laptop shut and pulled the blinds. I spent the next few hours pacing around my apartment, trying to rationalize everything. Maybe it was some sick joke, but how could anyone know all that personal stuff? The emails didn't stop. All night, my phone buzzed with more messages from the same address, each one more personal, more threatening. I didn't sleep at all that night, and by morning, I'd convinced myself to just pack up and leave town for a few days. But as I left my apartment, I noticed something that sent a chill through my spine. Across the street, sitting on a park bench, was what looked like the same figure from the night before. This time I could see them more clearly. A man, wearing a dark hoodie, his face completely hidden. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just watched as I drove away. I never went back to that forum, and when I came back home a couple days later, I noticed he was gone. I never saw him again. I was browsing a dark web marketplace looking for some rare electronics you can't find in normal stores. After a while, I came across a vendor with a weird offer. Free gift with every purchase. I figured it was a gimmick. People don't give stuff away for free on the dark web. But the seller had decent reviews, and the item I was after was cheap, so I went for it. A few days later, a plain, nondescript box arrived at my door. Inside was the thing I ordered, plus a small, unmarked USB drive. No note, no label, nothing. I don't know why I was so intrigued by it, but my curiosity got the better of me. I plugged the drive into my computer. There was only one file on it named watchme.mp4. I hesitated for a moment, but eventually I clicked on it, figuring it was some kind of promotional video or, at worst, a harmless prank. The video was low quality and shaky, as if someone had filmed it on an old phone. For the first few seconds, the screen was just black. Then the image came into focus. It was a video of a room. My room. My stomach dropped. The camera was positioned in the corner of my bedroom, pointed directly at my bed. The timestamp showed that it had been recorded just a few nights earlier, while I was sleeping. I paused the video and stared at the screen, heart racing. I had no idea how anyone could have gotten into my house. I always kept my doors locked. I was living alone at the time, and the idea that someone had been inside while I was completely unaware sent chills through me. Despite the fear rising in my chest, I forced myself to press play again. The video continued, showing me lying in bed, oblivious. Suddenly, the camera jerked slightly, as if whoever was holding it had shifted. Then a figure appeared in the frame, a tall, shadowy figure standing at the foot of my bed. It were wearing a dark hoodie, and its face was obscured. The person just stood there, watching me sleep. I could see them tilt their head, almost as if they were studying me. I closed the video, my hands trembling. How had I not woken up? Why hadn't I heard anything? I tore through my apartment, checking every lock, every window, every possible entry point. Everything was sealed tight, just as I had left it. The next few days were a blur of paranoia. I barely slept, jumping at every noise, every creak of the floorboards. I started to think maybe I was overreacting, that the video was some kind of prank, a trick to freak me out. But how could it be? It was my bedroom in the video, no doubt. Then, 3 days after I found the USB drive, another package arrived at my door. This time, there was no item inside, just a note. We're still watching. That night, I stayed awake, lights on, trying to calm my nerves. Around 2 a.m., there was a soft knock at my door. It was so quiet that I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Then it came again, louder this time, more insistent. My heart pounded in my chest, but I didn't dare get up. My phone buzzed and I glanced at the screen. A new message had appeared, from an unknown number. Open the door. We want to give you something. I immediately called the police. I told them someone was outside my door, someone who had broken inside my house before. They said they'd send someone over, but it'd be about 15 minutes. I sat there, holding my breath, trying not to make a sound. The knocking stopped. I felt a brief sense of relief, until my phone buzzed again. "We know you're inside. Just come out." I stared at the message in disbelief. Then another knock, this time right at my window. I couldn't see anything through the blinds, but I knew they were there just outside. When the police finally arrived, they found no one, just a single footprint outside my window. They took a statement, checked the perimeter, and told me to call them if anything else happened. I moved out of that apartment 2 days later. I never found out who they were or how they got inside, but I never visited the dark web again. I never thought the dark web was anything more than an urban legend, until I saw it for myself. It's not just a place for illegal weapons or drugs. There's a darker, more twisted side that I never should have touched. It all started with Jason, a buddy I've known since high school. We were at a bar one night, and after a few beers, the conversation veered into weird stuff we'd seen online. Jason's always been into creepy and bizarre sites, and that night, he mentioned something he'd stumbled on while browsing the dark web, a site called The Puppet Show. He laughed it off as something super sketchy, but didn't go into much detail. It wasn't until a few days later, when I was home alone and bored out of my mind, that I remembered it. Curiosity got the better of me, so I messaged Jason and asked if he could send me the link. He did. "You gotta check it out," he wrote. "Just don't stay on it too long. Weird shit." I thought he was exaggerating, but I set up my VPN, opened Tor, and clicked on the link he sent. The website itself looked outdated, just a black screen with 2 options: watch and request. There were no instructions, no logos, just those 2 words. Figuring watch was harmless enough, I clicked on it. A video feed opened up, showing a dimly lit room. There was a man tied to a chair, his face covered with a burlap sack. The video quality was terrible, like it had been filmed with an old camera. I sat there waiting, thinking it was some kind of edgy art piece. But then, a robotic voice crackled through my speakers. "Welcome to the Puppet Show. Do you want to play?" Before I could process what was happening, the screen shifted to a different angle, this time showing the man's tied-up hands. A chat box popped up on the side of the screen, and that's when I realized what was going on. People were commenting. They were making suggestions like, "Cut him," "Break his fingers," "Burn him alive." My stomach churned. This wasn't a video recording. This was live. I sat there, stunned, unable to move. It had to be fake, right? There's no way something this horrible could be real. But the more I watched, the more I could see the subtle details. The man's shaking hands, the muffled sound of his breathing under the sack. And then, the chat started to change. "Who's the new guy?" "He's watching you." I froze. New guy? They couldn't possibly be talking about me, right? I hadn't even typed anything. I reached up to my webcam, making sure it was covered, but the comments kept coming. "Look at him, right there in his apartment. Hey newbie, why don't you join the fun?" My heart started racing. How the hell did they know I was watching? I clicked out of the site, trying to close everything down, but nothing worked. Every time I tried to exit, a new window would open with the same video feed, the same man tied to the chair. Then, a new message appeared. "Stay a little longer. It's just getting good." I shut my computer down and unplugged it from the wall. There was no way I was sticking around to see what happened next. I messaged Jason, telling him what I saw, but all he replied with was, "Dude, I told you not to get too deep." I tried to forget about it. A few days passed and I convinced myself it was all just a weird prank. That is, until I received an email. The subject line was just my name. "John, you forgot to finish the show." I opened the email, and there was a single link. No message, no context, just a link. My stomach turned. I didn't want to click it, but I had to know. Against my better judgment, I opened the link. It was a video, but this time, it wasn't some random room. It was my apartment. The video showed my living room from an angle that perfectly captured the couch I was sitting on. I nearly dropped my phone. They were watching me, right now. Panicked, I started checking every corner of my apartment. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew there had to be cameras somewhere. That night, I barely slept. I stayed up, phone in hand, waiting for the next message. It didn't come until the morning. "Ready for the next episode?" I snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. I called the police, explaining everything I could, though I felt like a complete idiot. It sounded like a crazy conspiracy theory, but the minute I mentioned the video of my apartment, they got serious. 2 officers came over to inspect my place. They combed through every room, and after about an hour, they found 3 hidden cameras. One in the living room, one in the kitchen, and another in the hallway. Tiny, almost invisible. I felt sick. How long had they been watching me? The police didn't have many answers, just a strong suggestion. Move. I didn't need to be told twice. Within the next couple of days, I packed up and found a new apartment across town. The police promised they'd continue investigating, but as of now, nothing's come of it. No arrests, no leads, just silence. It's been a week since I moved, and I'm writing this from my new place. So far, I haven't gotten any more emails or seen any strange videos, but I can't shake the feeling that someone is still watching me. Every time I hear a noise, I think back to that first message. "Welcome to the puppet show." I wish I'd never clicked that damn link.